What is good, everybody? Today is August 11th. We're about to run through the entire price action from the day, looking at all the trade setups, all the lessons that the market wanted to show us today, trying to absorb as many of them as possible, and why, in my opinion, today was not the best day to trade. So without further ado, let's just hop straight into it. All right, so I think the most important thing to start off on today is the economic calendar. We have to look at how we look for the entire week. So let's just start off and let's make sure that we have the entire week going. So let's select the entire week. This week. All right. So on the weekly, the only thing that we have is a little bit of 10 a.m. Monday news. So this is 7 a.m. for me, but it's 10 a.m. New York time, right? So consider this 10 a.m. Trump speaking, a little bit of a randomized 10 a.m. news that doesn't inject volatility cleanly, but it instead manipulates, and it's not the best idea to trade or to take a trade while Trump is talking, because we know the way that Trump talks. He drops bombs, and the market likes to manipulate exactly whenever he says anything crazy, right? So at this point, that 10 a.m. Trump speech is a little bit of a reason that maybe you shouldn't want to be trading around that time. Next, we look at that small amount of news on Monday with the entire rest of the week just being stacked. Wednesday, the only day without news. So I'm expecting tomorrow to be a great day. We'll expect Thursday and Friday to be pretty interesting too. But Wednesday and Monday are the days without news, so we can expect them to be setups for the rest of the week. So Monday today is really just accumulating price action without the best setup. So in my opinion, it was not a great day to trade. So without further ado, let's just hop straight in, right? So these are two potential setups you could have taken today, and let's just run straight through them. Why I thought they were good. Like, let's look at entirety of what happened today with price. So let's clear up the charts. Starting off on the hourly, we saw the overnight session, or the kind of when market reopened, we saw it kind of sweep this high on ES while running it on NQ, right? So looking at this point right now, NQ looks pretty bullish. It looks like it's displacing past that high. Well, ES is looking like it is sweeping that high. So that's immediately a form of maybe a little bit of discorrelation, maybe some half and half conditions that we want to make sure we are aware of and don't trade against, or we want to be at least cautious of when we're taking a trade, right? So there's a couple ways that you could have looked at this on open to get a bias. If you look at the higher time frame, we're definitely clearly looking bullish up to this high, but you could also look at this hourly change of the state, potentially validating us to take out this low as we ended up doing later in the day. However, nothing today was super concrete, right? So what I ended up doing was, let's quickly mark it exactly where 9 a.m. was, just so I can get an idea of what we're looking at. So on open, 9 a.m. right here. On open, we had kind of made a little bit of displacement to the downside, and we had created a SMT on this low. So one bullish SMT, nothing really crazy, especially because it's not like perfect, but it is something that I'm definitely watching, especially because price is currently on that leg that's reacting from that SMT, right? So looking right now, after you see that SMT put in, we see this 1 hour value gap get ran completely through, and a new 1 hour opened up over here. So let's quickly mark this new one out. Let me quickly make this a little bit pretty for y'all. And then right here, we see this basically that we can expect to see hold to maybe this high and this high, and then by extension, this one all the way up here. So what are we looking for in open? We're looking to see that BISI hold, and then on ES we're looking to see, or sorry, on NQ we're looking to maybe see the inverse value gap hold, something like that. We're looking to see a bullish reaction to the upside to go run all of these highs. So on open, what actually happens? Well, it's important to look at where we open, right? So we open right here at that value gap, holding onto it, right? If you look, ES goes ahead and manipulates, NQ kind of doesn't, and what we end up doing, let's go to the 1 minute, right? So what we end up doing is ES manipulates those highs and then starts to dump. Or NQ manipulates the highs and starts to dump down to get down to this area to retrace, right? And at this point, I'm looking to see some kind of maybe SMT external put in before we push higher. However, we just start to push higher, right? So this is the first potential opportunity for a trade that I thought was actually not that bad. So when you're watching, we want to look for that higher time frame change in the state. If you look at the actual structure right here, ES at this point has imbalanced price action all through here. If you go to the 15 minute, there's 2 fair value gaps in this leg, where if you look on NQ, there's no fair value gaps in, where's this leg? Same leg, geez. Right here, yeah. There's literally one, and it's probably the smallest fair value gap I've ever seen in my life. So immediately, ES, if we see, or sorry, NQ, if we see validation on NQ, that shows us we could potentially be much more bullish on NQ to take a long, right? So I'm simply waiting. I'm seeing, are we going to maybe push lower? Are we going to displace higher and give us a reaction? I'm simply reacting. I'm not predicting anything, because at this point, my bias is heavily 50-50, so I need to watch what the market does and then make my decision based off of that. So I'm watching. I see NQ make a huge change in the state with displacement, like market structure shift complete past that level. And at that point, I want to see, once we've ran through that 15-minute for value gap, I want to see a 15-second internal model. So I'm super down to take this trade, whatever it ends up being. We end up seeing no internal model here. Instead, we see an AMD setup, which I haven't backtested, I'm not the most comfortable with, and in my opinion, it's not as high of a win rate. So, and it doesn't happen as much too. So I wasn't interested in taking this kind of first fair value gap AMD setup to these highs. Although if we look, this would have banged, right? It would have been super efficient, would have banged. So nothing here for me. Simply waiting to see, can we get maybe another pullback, maybe another trade? We don't end up getting any kind of pullback until later in the day when we push lower to here. So at this point, after running this high right here on NQ, this high, what we do is if we look, NQ or ES over here is still holding on to these fair value gaps. So maybe zooming out to a 30 minute or something, we see this one fair value gap that ES is still holding on to. And then within that range, we see an SMT put in right here. If we look, we had an SMT put in right here. So I'll quickly draw that out on NQ over here on the right for y'all. So SMT put in right here. And we're within that fair value gap too. So the SMT here matters because it's within a place in which we expect to reject. So zoom in lower. Let's see, could we potentially get any kind of short setup here? I was looking at a potential short, and I wasn't looking to take this on NQ because if you look, NQ is looking much stronger. So I don't want to be shorting this, especially when I have beautiful equal lows right here, and then I have another external draw low right here. This is looking really great for a short setup. So what do I want to see? I want to see some kind of 1 minute validation or some kind of 15-second or 5-minute validation, something like that, right? To give me confirmation to go take a short, right? So what we end up seeing is if you would have got stopped on this, I don't even think this was a bad play. This was the first potential short entry after the SMT displacement through. It would be change to the state entry right here. Stop at the high, targeting these lows. I think this is perfectly fine to take this loss. But then if you look, it ends up playing out. I don't think there's anything wrong with this. I think it was perfect to take that loss. And then this second trade, if you wanted to trade this on a 1 minute internal model, or just trade the 1 minute model, you wouldn't have been able to really get any kind of RR unless you ran this and still 1.26. Like, I don't think it's the best idea. So instead, what I was doing was I was waiting for a 5 minute closure. So I wanted to see 5 minute candle closure, making the change of the state. Then I now have confidence and a little bit of more protection where I believe that if the market's going to go lower, I'm now going to be protected if I want to take an internal model trade. So 5 minute, I want to zoom down to a 30-second. So looking, I want to see, can I trade the internal model of that 5 minute? So after we see that change of the state on this level, I'm looking to see an internal model setup. 30-second is not showing me anything. 15-second is not showing me anything, and 15-second is the lowest I want to go. Don't stretch this to a 5-second because 5-second will stop you out way more than it will actually get you W wins, right? So if you look, there is really no internal model trade here. What we wanted to see was some kind of thing like this, where I see a pullback to equilibrium, change of the state, giving me the W price action, the tank, TP 1, 2, 3, right? So, but we never got that, so there was no trade, and this was right when I expected. I was like, all right, I'm done trading, right? 1047 once we hit this external low, really nothing left for me. However, let's look at what price did after that point. So 1050, 810 is the time that I want to get off the charts. Right here at 1110, I end up seeing after we see this SMT, number one, is still in play. We see this second SMT now come in because if you look, NQ or ES over here has taken that low, where on NQ we haven't, right? So that shows us yet another bearish SMT, or sorry, bullish SMT. Then if we check over here, just mark that out again quickly. Something like this, bullish SMT. And then finally, we see a lower time frame internal SMT, right? So that would be on, where's the level at? Somewhere, yeah, so right here. So if you look, we end up taking this low on, did we take it on ES? So we make equal lows or we don't take it on ES. However, on NQ over here, we end up taking that low. So that turned into another bullish SMT divergence. So now looking at this point, the only reason, so which one do you trade now, right? Do you trade the one that's super weak and it's been taking sell side liquidity after sell side liquidity, or do you trade the one that looks much stronger to potentially give you a W risk reward, anything you really want, right? So in my opinion, I trade the stronger one for two reasons. Number one, that 15-minute fair value gap we initially marked, we're back in it, we're inversing it, and we're back into it. We are now treating it as some kind of inverse. So if you want to play it like this, that's fine. That wasn't really the biggest reason for me. It was because it was much stronger. It was inside the range, rebounds to equilibrium of the range. So I'll just draw that out really fast. Equilibrium of the range would be sitting somewhere right about here. Geez, what is up with my top step, bro? It has none of these things saved. So equilibrium, rebalance, we're right at making an SMT at equilibrium. Looks good. And the final thing that really, I don't think anyone really caught this, but if you look, first presented fair value gap, right over here. So pulling this out, boom. Perfect tap into first presented fair value gap. I mean, think what you want. Say like, no, that wasn't first presented, bro. Like, what are you doing? Like, just a fair value gap, like just a level. You can draw a line on the chart and it reacts off. It doesn't matter, right? But I think that with all the added conviction and the knowledge of first presented for value gap, seeing it taps into it, that gives me a little bit more comfort. Now being able to see this actually play out in live and knowing that we can get a reaction off of tapping this and using it as a magnet level during the day, right? So your trade here would have been one of two things. It kind of depends on your trading style. The first sniper entry would have been on the actual change of the state, which would be this level right here. So tapped, and I mean, this goes, dude. Like, geez, you could hold this for crazy trade, right? In my opinion, I don't have enough confirmation just after seeing that one candle closure. I want to see price close past this level, right? So this would be where I took my trade. And this would be first take profit, second take profit. And then from there to squeeze out RR with the rest of the run that I'm still a little bit confident in, we could potentially see it. I want to do two things. I want to draw all my manipulation legs. See, where does fib actually align? Like, geez, bro, why does Top Step never save these things? So I want to see, where does my fib actually align? So I have 2 right here getting hit. I have 3 right here. Now let's draw it out on this leg too, which could be the real manipulation leg. 2, 2.5 up here. And then the final one would be this manipulation leg right here. So there's also 2 right here. It's whatever you want to draw out. And final one would go right here with the full manipulation. So high to low. So now my job is to simply sit here and look at and say, where do most of these levels align and where can we see an actual reaction? So we kind of see, I see 2 calibers of levels, right? I see the actual chart liquidity levels, and then I see where the standard deviations align. This is the level that I'd be wanting to take mine, because first of all, we have the bigger time frame right here showing us that we have our bigger time frame manipulation leg that the actual model is playing out on, because this model, this is all one model right here that I'm looking at right now. This is all one model, and the actual model's manipulation leg is going to be this one right here. So the levels we want to look at are 1, -2, all the way up here. So let's quickly mark out -1 and then -2, right? Now we have this little internal model, which you can also respect. So just drop the 3, right? And then we have this one where the actual, what's it called? The actual internal model standard deviation tells us that we could potentially see this internal model play to 2 to 2.5, which if you look, these things don't lie, bro. Like, these things really do not lie. If we look, we have 2 to 2.5 right here. So the area in which we see price go towards is where 2 to 2.5 is aligned, and where we see -3.5, we see 1. So this area, anywhere in here, any one of these levels, honestly, I would have probably taken it to -2 right here. That's probably be the farthest I'm comfortable holding it to, and then maybe runners to this level and this level. But if you looked at naked tap, so this is kind of, if you want to frame crazy runners on a trade, you can do things like this where you can set standard deviation targets up like this. Or another thing is, this is honestly my favorite past standard deviation targets, where we do a whole bunch of this voodoo stuff where we, like, literally at this point, you can either like this. I like it because I've seen it play out 1,000 times. However, if you're getting into this, you don't trust yourself to draw these out. You don't trust, really, you haven't back tested it enough. Another way I love to do this is when I see at this point in the chart and I see everything taken off, bro, we just hit our take profit, but I have runners, I'm not sure where to run them to, and I see ES over here is still pumping, and the external draw on ES is going to be this high. I can say, all right, I'm just going to hold this position until either I get a turnaround or I see ES take that high. So I'm literally just free holding this position until ES takes this high right at 1209. So at 1209, 1209 right here, 1209. After this candle closure, I take the position off. That's probably the best RR you could have gotten. And look how damn just absolute precise this is. This is honestly one of the best ways to lead runners. If you take a trade and you're like, when ES takes the external draw, I'm gonna take this trade off. Or when ES hits its take profit level, because maybe it was the lagging one, I didn't want to take this trade because I think that this is really too much of like calling a bottom, especially on a 1 minute chart. I wouldn't be comfortable taking this, right? But you see that ES is going, and you now, when you're at this point in your trade, you are confident that this will take that draw. And then you can be like, all right, I'm just gonna leave it until, because we know these are correlated, bro. They're gonna be following each other 99% of the time. So we can see stuff like that play out. Overall, I didn't take this trade because it was past my time. At 11:10, if I don't see the market like be efficient now, I'm not trading, especially with this choppy action that we had in the morning. So in my opinion, there really wasn't, much of a trade, much of a setup. I didn't really like anything that I saw, honestly, just to be completely honest. So overall, I think it was a great day to learn from, great day to get some good info from. The biggest thing to take away is to look at how on days like this, where we see this kind of choppy action, we don't see the best possible setups. What we do see is if we go to that Forex factor, we go to that economic calendar, we see those times where this Monday where we don't see the best action is where there's no news. And it's like, bro, if you want to burn your wallet, if you want to spend all the money in your account on a day, make it a day where there's news, please. Like, don't trade this choppy action. And especially, I can tell, bro, Monday, no news, and we see the candlesticks moving this slow. This was 20 minutes of action, dude. 20 minutes of action, and we're doing nothing. Like, I don't want to be trading that. I want to trade the price action that's fast, efficient. I want to be trading these first minutes of open, right? So if you're able to get involved here, I mean, more power to you. I think this was a perfectly fine setup. Maybe after inversing first presented, if you wanted to take that trade, I think that's fine, right? Doing whatever. I would have to place my stop before that low, so it could have been something like this. I mean, it's whatever. But in my opinion, I think that, dude, these trades are fine to take. Like, I think that, in my opinion, it's just not the best day to trade because of the, in my opinion, it's just not the best day to trade because of the conditions in the market. It's better to literally just step off when it's showing us, number one, 50-50 price action, constant SMTs, discorrelation, and align all of that with the day that we have no news and it's a Monday, bro. Like, this is not a day that we want to be trading. It's not a day that we want to be looking at the charts looking to make money. However, I'm going to tell you guys, when we get later in the week, CPI, PPI, all this stuff, that is when you can be like, all right, let's put some size on. Like, let's go full size. Let's see how much we can make today. Let's just trade our A+ model and stuff like that. And you guys will see yours also days, but not these days like Monday. So today was just a day about capital preservation, tapering price action, and understanding with all this complex stuff, if you can keep up as a trader, not by taking trades and making money, but by understanding where we want to go in the market, that is when you see the growth. Like, that is when you actually see the growth of, I kept up, like, I was able to do this. I was able to understand where the price narrative was going throughout the day. When you can use the SMTs, use the narrative, and make good reads, you know that you're doing good as a trader when you can tape read a day like this. So overall, I think it was a W, interesting day to analyze, and I'm gonna let you boys go now. So if you guys have any questions at all, drop in the comments. Hope you guys can learn something from today. And without further ado, I'm gonna let you boys go. Peace out.